So here we are again, the annual Hatman Boxing Awards 2019. There's just 5 categories this year, keeping it short and sweet to avoid chaos and confusion. And the categories are as follows: Upset of the Year, Comeback of the Year, Knockout of the Year, Fight of the Year, and Fighter of the Year. And of course, this is voted for by you, my subscribers. Now, after I've announced the winners for each category, I'll then give my personal picks for each category. Okay? So without further ado, let's get to it. So the 5 nominees for Upset of the Year 2019 were Joshua Ruiz 1, Pacquiao versus Thurman, Pascal versus Brown, Williams versus Hurd, and Avanesian versus Lahara. I believe that's how you pronounce his surname. Please forgive me if I'm butchering it. In 5th place, with 1% of the vote, was Avanesian versus Lahara. In joint 3rd and 4th place, with 2% of the vote apiece, was Pascal versus Brown and Williams versus Hurd. In 2nd place, with just 4% of the vote, was Pacquiao versus Thurman. And you guessed it, in 1st place, with a whopping 92% of the vote, was Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz 1. So, unsurprisingly, that gets voted for by you, the public, as Upset of the Year. Moving on to the next category, Comeback of the Year. The 5 nominees were as follows: Manny Pacquiao, Anthony Joshua, Jean Pascal, Jeff Horn, and Nonito Donaire. In 5th place, with 1% of the vote, was Jeff Horn. In 4th place, with 4% of the vote, was Jean Pascal. In 3rd place, with 5% of the vote, was Nonito Donaire. In 2nd place, with 21% of the vote, was Manny Pacquiao. And in 1st place, with 69% of the vote, was Anthony Joshua. So there you have it, voted for by you, my subscribers. Anthony Joshua was the Comeback of the Year for 2019. Next category, Knockout of the Year. The nominees were as follows: Dorticus versus Tabiti, Canelo versus Kovalev, Chisora versus Spilka, Wilder versus Brazil, and Wilder versus Ortiz. In 5th place, with 3% of the vote, was Dorticus versus Tabiti. In 4th place, with 6% of the vote, was Wilder versus Ortiz. In 3rd place, with 8% of the vote, was Canelo versus Kovalev. In 2nd place, with 27% of the vote, was Chisora versus Spilka. And in 1st place, with 55% of the vote, was Deontay Wilder versus Dominic Brazil. So there you have it. The winner of KO of the Year 2019, as voted for by Hatman Strikes Back subscribers, was Deontay Wilder's knockout over Dominic Brazil. The next category is Fight of the Year, and the nominees are as follows: Inoue versus Donaire, Spence versus Porter, Golovkin versus Derevyanchenko, Taylor versus Prograis, and Williams versus Hurd. In 5th place, with 4% of the vote, was Julian Williams versus Jarrett Hurd. In 4th place, with 6% of the vote, was Gennady Golovkin versus Sergey Derevyanchenko. In 3rd place, with 25% of the vote, was Inoue versus Donaire. In 2nd place, with 27% of the vote, was Josh Taylor versus Regis Prograis. And in 1st place, with 37% of the vote, was Errol Spence Jr. versus Sean Porter. There you have it. Spence Jr. versus Sean Porter is the Fight of the Year, as voted for by you, my subscribers, here on the Hatman Strikes Back YouTube channel. So now we come to the final category, Fighter of the Year 2019. The nominees are as follows: Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, Artur Beterbiev, Josh Taylor, and Naoya Inoue. In 5th place, with 4% of the vote, is Artur Beterbiev. In joint 3rd and 4th place, with 12% of the vote apiece, is Manny Pacquiao and Naoya Inoue. In 2nd place, with 19% of the vote, is Josh Taylor And in first place, you guessed it, with 53% of the vote, is Canelo Alvarez. So there you go. Canelo Alvarez is the 2019 Fighter of the Year as voted for by you, my subscribers. So now I'm going to tell you my own personal choices for each category. A lot of this comes down to perception, and my perception is going to be quite different, and in some cases radically different to the majority of people's perceptions out there. So let's get to it. My personal upset of the year was not Ruiz Joshua 1 or Joshua Ruiz 1, whichever way around you want to put it. That wasn't my upset of the year. Reason being, I was expecting Anthony Joshua to lose to somebody outside of the top three. Not necessarily in 2019, but sometime in the not too distant future. I made videos about it. I was talking about how I felt Jarrell Miller had a good chance of beating Anthony Joshua. Very few people agreed with me. In the lead up to the Ruiz fight, the first one on June 1st, I was saying that Ruiz has got a good chance. So I wasn't in the majority who were writing Andy Ruiz off. I felt like he had a decent chance against Anthony Joshua. I was still picking AJ, don't get it twisted. But when AJ lost, it wasn't a shock to me that it was to most other people. The evidence is right there in the videos I did prior to that fight happening. I did not write Andy Ruiz off in any shape, form, or fashion, and therefore Joshua Ruiz 1 wasn't my upset of the year. My personal upset of the year was a toss-up between Pacquiao, Thurman, and Pascal versus Brown. Now, again, this all comes down to my own personal perception. Obviously, my personal perception was wrong for both of those fights. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been shocked and surprised by the result, right? So my perception was off for Pacquiao, Thurman, and Pascal versus Brown. But one of the reasons I was shocked by Pacquiao beating Thurman is because of Pacquiao's age, because of what he's been through, how long his career has been. And although Keith Thurman was coming off a long layoff, he hadn't lost to people like Jeff Horn. He hadn't been knocked out cold by Juan Manuel Marquez. I know it was a long time ago, but still. So I felt as though Keith Thurman, even though he didn't look particularly impressive in his previous fight, he would step it up against Pacquiao, he would use his legs, and he would win quite comfortably. That's what I was genuinely expecting from that fight. I was not expecting a Manny Pacquiao win. I know a lot of other people were, but I felt as though it's just the Pacquiao name. They're remembering Pacquiao from years ago. They're forgetting that Pacquiao lost to Jeff Horn, But clearly I was wrong and they were right, and it was far more competitive than I had bargained for. So that shocked me, Pacquiao, Thurman. And also Pascal versus Brown shocked me. I mean, Pascal, again, long career, been in a lot of wars, taken a lot of punishment, retired a couple times, just as Pacquiao did. He was taking on Marcus Brown, who was coming in off a career best performance against Badu Jack. So never in a million years did I think that Pascal would be able to upset Brown. Not this version of Pascal, not a Pascal who got stopped by Sergey Kovalev twice, who got beaten out of sight by Dmitry Bivol. Was real surprised by both of those. If I had to pick one of them, which surprised me more than the other, I'll probably say Pacquiao Thurman, simply because Thurman is more proven at world level than Marcus Brown. So Pacquiao Thurman was my upset of the year. Again, it's down to my personal perception. Some people don't understand when I have a particular pick in a certain category, which is, different from the majority. A lot of people don't get it. It's my own personal perception. Yeah? What is an upset? An upset is something that you don't expect, something that shocks you. And I can understand. It's obvious that the majority of people were shocked by the result in the Joshua Ruiz first fight. But I wasn't shocked. And therefore, how can it be my upset of the year? I have to go for something which genuinely shocked me, which was Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman. So that's my upset of the year. Now, comeback of the year was a bit more difficult for me to choose because there was some great comebacks in 2019. The nominees were Pacquiao, Joshua, Pascal, Horn, and Donaire. Now, Donaire obviously won a fight and lost the fight. Jeff Horn won a fight and lost the fight. Jean Pascal won 2 fights, right? And Anthony Joshua won a fight and lost the fight. Manny Pacquiao, did he fight once or twice in 2019? I forget, but he certainly beat Keith Thurman. So do you go with the guys who had to come back from adversity? Because that's what comeback is about, right? It's either you're coming out of retirement or you're coming back from adversity. If a guy is, winning all his fights in a particular year, yeah, I guess you could say that that's a comeback if he'd lost fights in the previous year. So I don't know. For me, it's a little more difficult to choose comeback of the year. I can understand why most people picked Anthony Joshua because of the pressure. It's not just the fact that he lost, it's the fact that there was so much pressure on him to win the rematch. It was incredible. And in fact, of all the nominees for comeback of the year, surely Joshua was under by far the most pressure because the likes of, let's say, Nonito Donaire and Jean Pascal, not much was expected of them. Yeah, when they made their comeback. So great comebacks, particularly Pascal, great comeback by him to beat Marcus Brown, beat Badou Jack. I know the Badou Jack fight was apparently close. I haven't yet seen the fight because Showtime are extremely militant when it comes to copyright and all that business. I've been looking for the fight on Daily Motion. Normally it's up the next day or a couple days after, and it is nowhere to be seen. The Pascal versus Badou Jack fight. Can't find that on Daily Motion. Can't find Davis versus Gamboa either. So I'm having to go off what other people are saying about those fights. But anyway, Pascal, great year for him. Great comeback. But there was no pressure, Jeff Horn, I guess there was a bit of pressure in Australia there with the little derby that he's having with Zarafa. Is Zarafa Australian as well, or is he from New Zealand? I don't want to get the two mixed up. Manny Pacquiao, again, I mean, of course, there's a certain amount of pressure every time Pacquiao fights. He is loved in the Philippines. He's an extremely popular figure. He's a politician in the Philippines, last I checked. So yeah, there would have been a tremendous amount of pressure on Pacquiao too. But still, I think Anthony Joshua deserves the vote for comeback of the year. He is who the majority of you picked. And as I say, it's mainly because of the pressure he was under. I mean, this young man was being written off. The majority of the Sky team were picking Anthony Joshua to lose the rematch. Dealing with that kind of pressure, and going up against the person who's knocked you out as well. Think about it. Manny Pacquiao had never fought Keith Thurman before. And he's a longtime veteran. Okay? Jean Pascal had never fought Marcus Brown or Badou Jack before. Jeff Horn had fought Zarafa, of course. Nonito Donaire had never fought Inoue. So that, again, adds to Joshua's comeback status, if you will, because of the fact that he was fighting someone who just beaten the crap out of him a few months earlier with all the pressure and managed to come out, victorious in the rematch. So, yeah, comeback of the year for me as well is Anthony Joshua. Knockout of the year, well, there were some great nominees. There was Dorticus Tabiti, Canelo Kovalev, Chisora Spilka, Wilder Brazil, and Wilder Ortiz. Now, for me, a knockout is not just about, flattening somebody with one punch. It's about the circumstances and the situation that you're in at the time that the knockout occurs. So, for example, I preferred the Wilder Brazil knockout over the Wilder Ortiz knockout. Because the Wilder Brazil knockout, it happened in the first round, but it happened during a firefight. Both guys were letting their hands go, and it seemed a little chaotic in the ring at that moment. Wilder had just got hit. Well, Brazil had been wobbled. He'd gone to the corner. He come out of the corner with a right hand, which momentarily, buzzed Wilder a little bit. It probably looked worse than it actually was, but in the moment, it looked quite dramatic. So it was a one-round firefight, and Wilder comes out with this one-punch knockout that flattens Dominic Brazil. So to me, that was more impressive than the Ortiz knockout, because the Ortiz knockout, even though it came against the run of play, you could see that knockout coming a mile off. The fight was fought at a very methodical kind of pace, and I was just looking at it thinking it's only a matter of time before Wilder nails this guy. He's standing right in front of him. He's getting slower every round. He's not giving him too many angles. Wilder's going to let that right hand go at some stage and nail this guy and knock him out. It just seems so inevitable. And therefore, to me, that wasn't as impressive. And again, he was also fighting an old guy. Whereas with Brazil, he was fighting a young guy. So to me, the Brazil knockout was more impressive than the Ortiz knockout for Deontay Wilder. Great knockout against Dominic Brazil. Canelo Kovalev, that was also a great knockout. It was late in the fight. It was a competitive fight. I wouldn't say it was necessarily against the run of play, but it did seem to come out of the blue a little bit. So it was also a great knockout. But personally for me, my knockout of the year was Dorticus knocking out Tabiti. Only 3% of you agree with me. 55% picked Wilder Brazil, 27% Chisora Spilka. And Chisora Spilka was a great knockout too. You know, the way Chisora pinned Spilka on the ropes and let loose and had him slithering down the ropes onto the canvas in a heap. But for me personally, Dorticus versus Tabiti was my knockout of the year. Because not only was it a one-punch knockout and Tabiti was out cold, but it was in a competitive fight. You know, it was in a fight where you weren't sure which way it was going to go and it was late, you know? So for a knockout to occur in them circumstances just added to the drama of it and how memorable it was. A one-punch knockout late in a fight, which could have gone either way otherwise. So that's my personal pick for knockout of the year 2019 is Junior Dorticus versus Andrew Tabiti. And by the way, Dorticus has got to be one of the top value for money fighters in the whole sport. I mean, how many times has Dorticus given us thrills and spills in a boxing ring? Long may it continue in 2020. All right, so my personal pick for fight of the year, very, very difficult because all of the fights which were, nominated for this category were great fights. I mean, you had Inoue versus Donaire, Spence Porter, Golovkin, Derevenchenko, Taylor Prograis, Williams versus Hurd. Real difficult for me to pick a winner out of all those. Most of you, well, 37%, because this was the closest category out of all of them. 37% of you picked Spence Porter. Second place, Prograis Taylor. Third place, Inoue Donaire. Fourth place, Golovkin Derevenchenko. Fifth place, Williams Hurd. I'm still undecided as I sit here, so I'm going to pick on the fly right now. I would probably say, Inoue versus Donaire. I'll probably say that because both guys were in trouble in that fight. Genuine trouble. In the Spence Porter fight, I don't think both guys were really in trouble. I think Porter obviously was dropped and Spence was under a lot of pressure and it was non-stop action. But there was never a time when I felt like Errol Spence was in serious danger in the fight. Golovkin, Derevenchenko, both guys were in danger. Derevenchenko was down. Golovkin was hurt several times. So that might be my number 2, Golovkin, Derevenchenko. Prograis Taylor, great fight, high level. But again, neither guy, well, I guess both guys were under pressure at times in the fight. But again, nobody was on the, verge of being stopped or anything like that. Williams versus Hurd, another great fight. But yeah, for me, I'm going to say Inoue versus Donaire was my personal fight of the year. You guys don't have to agree with me. That's why we have these votes, right? But that's my personal pick was Inoue versus Donaire. And in second place, I would say Golovkin versus Derevenchenko. And finally, my personal pick for fighter of the year. Well, in this particular instance, I'm not going to say it's Pacquiao. Taylor's got to be up there, as a possibility. Inoue just won the World Boxing Super Series, but he beat an old Nonito Donaire, who's still got plenty of gas in the tank, but, he's not what he used to be, is he? Josh Taylor beat a prime Regis Prograis. So for me, Taylor would have to be above Inoue for 2019. That doesn't mean that Taylor's a better fighter than Inoue or anything like that. I'm just saying in terms of what they achieved in 2019, for me, Taylor's above Inoue because I think he beat, a prime guy in the final rather than a guy who's a bit jaded. So Taylor's up there. But Beterbiev, of course, has got to be up there. The way he unified with Gvozdyk, stopped him. He's got to be up there. So for me, it's going to be between Canelo, Beterbiev, and Taylor. And who do I pick out of those guys? Canelo, obviously, he's had a great year. Stepped up and knocked out Kovalev. I know people are going to talk about rehydration clauses and all that kind of stuff. But wasn't Floyd Mayweather making people sign rehydration clauses? Didn't he drain Canelo Alvarez? But yet after he beat him, Mayweather gets all the credit. So shouldn't we do the same with Canelo Alvarez? He's had a great year. I can't grumble at anybody who picked Canelo as the fighter of the year for 2019. But I think Beterbiev and Taylor at the very least are snapping at his heels. So, I'm going to say Canelo Alvarez. I'm going to agree with 53% of you and say Canelo Alvarez. But on another day, I might say Beterbiev or I might say Josh Taylor. But it's out of those three for me. So let me just go along with the majority of you on this one and say Canelo Alvarez is the fighter of the year for 2019. So there you have it, people. Those are the Hatman Awards. And we'll be here again in 2020 for another set of Hatman Boxing Awards. Until then, enjoy the year. Let's hope for some great fights, some more upsets and drama. And yeah, let's just enjoy this great sport of ours. I know a lot of boxing fans love to moan, but those of you who have been following me for any length of time will know that I tend to be a glasses half full type of boxing fan. If I was as miserable as a lot of boxing fans are, I wouldn't be following this sport no more. In fact, it baffles me as to why some people do follow boxing, because all they ever do is moan about it and complain about, oh, how it's terrible, we don't get the fights we want and it's corrupt. Oh, my God, it should be like UFC. All they do is complain. Okay, if it's so bad, why are you still watching? I love boxing. And I'm always looking on the bright side because there's plenty of bright side to look on, truth be told. A lot of people don't realize how great this particular era of boxing is, not just for the heavyweight division, but boxing in general. It's a great era for boxing. Yeah? Great era. I mean, there's been very few times when the sport has been so hot, certainly in the UK. Boxing is hot right now. You know, the past 10 years, real hot. So I'm enjoying it, man, and I'm looking forward to 2020. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Catch you on the next video. It's Hatman, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.